at a large city hospital, more specifically at the psychiatry department, where he hoped to find answers for his peculiar condition. There, the doctor attending him tried to confirm what she had just heard, asking if it was true that he saw every living being as a pig. Sitting in front of her, our hero kept a rigid posture, and with a subtle nod, he confirmed her suspicion. In disbelief, the doctor adjusted her glasses and asked if it was some kind of joke, then asked if, to his eyes, she also looked like a pig. But to her surprise, he confirmed it without hesitation. And indeed, in his vision, that was exactly how she looked. On the other hand, the doctor couldn't help but notice how handsome that young man in front of her was. Soon, teasingly, she began unbuttoning her blouse. Faced with that, the poor guy was completely speechless, while she suggested that before anything else, they should check if his bodily functions were normal. And with a mischievous smile, she leaned forward and, placing her hands on her chest, provoked him by asking what he was seeing at that moment. However, his vision went beyond that because, in his distorted perception, he didn't just see her pig face, but also her breasts as two separate pig heads. Then, quite directly, the boy simply replied that he saw two pigs. That answer finally convinced her that he really had a serious mental issue, which frightened her. Changing the course of the conversation entirely, she then picked up a model of a spine and stated that he had serious spinal issues. Pointing at the model, she explained that his spine was very different from a normal person's, as it was severely deformed and slightly twisted, compressing his brain and optic nerves, and claimed that was probably the reason he saw everyone as pigs. Absorbing that information, the boy was left speechless. The doctor then concluded, explaining that the only solution would be surgery to realign his spine, but warned that the success rate was low, and in case of failure, he could end up paralyzed from the neck down. However, he soon interrupted her, asking if she had finished speaking. Suddenly, he reached out his hand and, to her surprise, demanded that she return his spine. The doctor recoiled, incredulous, realizing he truly believed the model was his own spine, and lamented that such a handsome guy was a complete waste. Shortly after, he left the consultation and boarded a bus to continue on his way. Inside the crowded vehicle, the young man yawned, and well, this lunatic was Ye Chuan. In his hands, he held the report diagnosing him with a serious mental disorder. While observing the other passengers, he reflected that for as long as he could remember, he saw everyone as pigs, and speculated that maybe it was because his parents were butchers, which didn't affect his life much, except when it came to dating. Soon, he remembered that that was the day to awaken professions, and hoped that this condition could be cured before the event took place. However, he quickly concluded that this wouldn't be possible. Upon arriving at the location, he found himself facing the imposing Xingcheng Academy, where the awakening ceremony would take place. Inside, while walking, he wondered if his condition could affect the awakening of his profession, imagining that it would be a huge problem. Suddenly, a female voice called out to him. It was a girl with blue hair, who approached him visibly relieved that he had arrived, and with a playful punch on his shoulder said that if he had been late, she would have hit him. But in his distorted view, all Ye Chuan saw was just another pig with a sinister smile. The girl meanwhile shouted, asking if he had heard her. Faced with that, our hero didn't know how to respond. In the distance, someone watching them asked, somewhat irritated, why Zhu Lingshuan was clinging to Ye Chuan again, stating that the two never stopped sticking together. Soon, a guy next to him commented that they were childhood sweethearts and would probably get married and have kids after awakening. Hearing that, the girl got embarrassed and shouted for them to stop saying nonsense. In Ye Chuan's eyes, that smiling pig suggested he simply ignore them. Shortly after, a white-haired man announced that the ceremony was about to begin and asked the students to line up according to their student numbers. He explained that the awakening was based on 3 attributes: strength, spirit, and agility, and that the higher they were, the greater the chances of awakening an advanced profession. The old man continued his speech, telling them to focus all their energy because the profession they awakened would affect their entire life. And he added that if someone awakened an advanced combat profession, it would be like defying fate and would bring glory to the academy. Soon after, the man started the ceremony, instructing the first student to place his hand on the stone platform. The boy then touched the crystal, which reacted with an intense discharge of lightning. Shortly after, the stone revealed he had awakened a life-type profession, an intermediate blacksmith. The student was shocked by the result. Next, another student stepped up and, upon touching the stone, awakened an advanced healer profession. Soon after, another student fell to his knees and cried out upon discovering he had awakened as a junior engineer, a life-type profession. Then, a red-haired boy confidently walked toward the awakening stone. A bit nervous, he extended his hand, preparing for his moment. And the moment his hand touched the surface, the stone radiated an intense golden light. To everyone's surprise, the pillar revealed he had awakened a rare-level combat profession, a shadowless swordsman, which even left the headmaster stunned. The crowd, in turn, reacted with complete awe. The headmaster, now grinning from ear to ear, approached and asked the student what his name was. The boy, now puffing out his chest, introduced himself as Liu Jinglong. The old man then praised the boy's name and promised that later he would personally visit his home to discuss his future. The jerk then thanked the headmaster and waved to the crowd, who now cheered for him. Finally, the headmaster announced that the next to come forward would be our protagonist. As he walked toward the stage, his almost girlfriend wished him good luck. The headmaster meanwhile watched him, thinking that although our hero looked a bit strange, his attributes were absurdly high, totaling 10, more than 3 times the average of a normal person. Ye Chuan then placed his hands on the stone, hoping that maybe some miracle would happen. And the moment he touched it, a powerful wave of energy exploded, throwing both him and the headmaster backward, leaving the crowd in panic. The old man, completely shocked, shouted, wondering if that was really a golden light. The energy was so intense it seemed to crack the very air around the stone pillar. Our hero, meanwhile, remained standing, just waiting to see what would happen next. The headmaster, in shock, exclaimed that it truly was a divine-level awakening. But to everyone's astonishment, the pillar revealed that he had awakened a life-type profession, completely unexpected, especially being a divine pig butcher, which confused the headmaster. Upon seeing that, the crowd burst into laughter, asking if the stone was broken, and mocking how ridiculous his profession was. In the middle of that commotion, many wondered if the boy was lucky or cursed. The headmaster, meanwhile, felt that the heavens were mocking him and lamented that, after so many years as headmaster, when he finally witnessed a divine-level awakening, it turned out to be that of a useless pig butcher, which made him grumble that if it had been a divine blacksmith, healer, or alchemist, he could boast about it. With his hand on his face, he vented that the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment, and that instead of exploding with greatness, the boy had been a complete letdown. The old man then just sighed, not knowing what to say to the student. Suddenly, Ye Chuan came across something rather interesting. It was a system screen that appeared before him, showing his name, level, attributes, and the talents he possessed, such as Nemesis of Pigs and Blade of Divine Slaughter. As he analyzed it, he carefully read the description of the Nemesis of Pigs talent, and a slight smile appeared on his face as he realized it gave him a 50% bonus damage against pigs. With that, he concluded that in the end, maybe being a lunatic wasn't so bad. After all, to his eyes, the world around him, including even the headmaster of the academy, was a place full of pigs. Indifferent to the stairs, our hero then descended the stairs from the stage, simply following his path. However, as he passed through the crowd, Liu Jinglong and his companion didn't miss the chance to mock him. The redhead remarked that he thought the academy would finally produce a true dragon, but in the end, it was just a pig butcher. His companion agreed, finding it all hilarious, and flattered him, saying the only true dragon there was him. However, amid the mockery, Xu Lingshuan was the only one who approached to comfort him. With a gentle pat on the head, she tried to cheer him up, reminding him that he had awakened as a divine-level pig butcher and, in a way, was just following in his father's footsteps. Meanwhile, in the distance, other students cursed in anger, unable to believe the luck of that brat, who, according to them, must have accumulated blessings for several lifetimes. Ignoring the jealous ones, the girl said that both his father and hers would be moved by the awakening. And with that, our hero remembered that he and Xu Lingshuan had been neighbors since childhood. He remembered that both of their parents had life-type professions and had always tried to pair them up. Shortly after, the headmaster announced that the next to step forward would be Xu Lingshuan. Turning to Ye Chuan, she wondered if she would inherit her mother's seamstress profession or her father's winemaker one, but assured him that no matter the result, she would always stand by his side. Her words left him completely speechless. The girl then approached the stone, and the moment she touched it, the pillar erupted in a powerful bluish light. The girl, in turn, was shocked by what was happening. The headmaster, once again dumbfounded, shouted that she had awakened a legendary profession. With that, a cold breeze swept through the area, and then the pillar revealed her new profession, Soul Snow Sword Immortal, a legendary level combatant. The headmaster, in disbelief, theorized that it had to be some kind of mutation, since both her parents had life-type professions. Soon, enveloped by a bluish aura, the girl seemed to have transformed into someone else entirely. Seeing such potential, the headmaster approached and promised that, from now on, Qingcheng Academy would support her in everything she needed. With a simple thank you, she then turned and stepped down from the stage with an air of superiority. In the distance, 2 girls in from the crowd commented that one was a pig butcher and the other a legendary combatant, and wondered if Shu Lingxuan would still follow Ye Chuan around like a puppy. The other replied that it was obvious, since while she improved, he stayed the same, and that the sensible thing would be for that loser to stay far away from her. However, ignoring the whispers, our hero approached her and, clapping his hands, congratulated her. The girl, in turn, called him with a tone that was somewhat different, and with a superior air, she admitted that there may have been some misunderstandings between them, but that it was time to make things clear. She then coldly declared that they no longer belonged to the same world, which left him completely in shock. In the background, Liu Jinglong and his lackey watched everything with wicked smiles, clearly enjoying the scene. But to her surprise, the boy simply replied that it was all right. Ignoring his response, she continued, stating that she knew it must be a huge blow for him and that there was no point in pretending, and even added that, as a mere pig butcher, he would never achieve anything great. So she asked that he not blame her. However, in his view, that pig was saying that if he had no objections, everything was settled, and asked him not to bother her anymore in the future. And once again, to her surprise, Ye Chuan showed a relieved smile, certain that he had finally gotten rid of another pighead, and soon turned away calmly, ready to leave. Seeing the opportunity, Liu Jinglong approached, placed his arm around her, and with a sick grin, asked if she needed him to teach Ye Chuan a lesson so he would see reality. However, she simply ignored him. Liu Jinglong couldn't accept it, and, with unsettling anger, shouted for the pig butcher to come to him. Despite this, our hero completely ignored him, which left the redhead a bit surprised. Unable to accept it, he ran up and grabbed his arm, aggressively asking if the boy was deaf. Our hero, in turn, simply turned around and, with a cold and piercing stare, asked what he wanted. At that moment, a dark and threatening aura emanated from Ye Chuan, making Liu Jinglong look at him completely terrified. Intimidated, the redhead leaped backward. In his mind, he saw himself as a helpless pig about to be slaughtered by a butcher. The crowd, upon seeing that, burst into laughter, while his friend approached, asking if he was okay. Blinded by humiliation, Liu Jinglong once again confronted our protagonist. Out of his mind, he charged in, consumed by rage, unwilling to accept how he had been looked at. However, our hero moved with surprising speed and quickly raised his fist against him. With just one hand, he stopped the redhead's punch. But not only that, our hero was dozens of times stronger than the idiot. So, the impact was so strong that Liu Jinglong screamed in pain. Our hero had left his hand completely red. And well, that left everyone around, including Shu Lingxuan, completely stunned, not understanding what had just happened. The redhead, holding his injured hand, refused to believe it, questioning how it was possible. Ye Chuan, in turn, calmly replied, explaining that, as a butcher, it made perfect sense for him to have considerable strength. The crowd remained confused, and the fool's lackey pointed to Liu Jinglong's hand, drawing attention to the injury. Furious, the redhead shouted that he would kill him. Consumed by hatred, he then released his energy, materializing a large sword with a bluish blade. Seeing that, the girls in the crowd whispered, certain that it was the end for Ye Chuan, wondering why a mere butcher insisted on fighting a combat user instead of simply admitting he was wrong. Meanwhile, the redhead boasted that his void sword could even cut through a steel pipe. Blinded by fury, he shouted that he would cripple him right there. But suddenly, a layer of ice began to form over his sword's blade. Soon, the ice spread over his body, and he, surprised, realized he could no longer move. He then turned to Shu Lingxuan, asking why she was still helping him. Soon, the girl ordered them to stop. The annoying girl then explained that she didn't want to see them fighting so fiercely over her. Then, she turned to Ye Chuan, stating that it was proof they no longer belonged to the same world, and said that this would be the last time she helped him. However, while she told him to leave, our hero simply cleaned his ear, completely indifferent to all that drama. The lunatic advised him to leave Qingcheng, warning that the next time Liu Jinglong sought revenge, she wouldn't help him again. Despite the warning, the boy merely yawned and, with total indifference, said that if there was nothing else, he was already on his way. The two girls watching them, in turn, commented, surprised, that it seemed like he wasn't taking any of it seriously. Shortly after, our hero walked alone down a street, moving away from all the commotion. Suddenly, a ferocious dog appeared and began barking aggressively at him. Our hero, in turn, remained calm. And in his distorted vision, he didn't see a dog, but a wild boar, accompanied by an owner who looked more like a fat pig. The animal then lunged and bit his pants, prompting him to politely ask the woman to pull her pig away, quickly correcting himself to dog. However, the animal's owner reacted furiously, complaining that young people today seem to lack any compassion or respect for others. Faced with that situation, our hero closed his eyes, stating that this was the perfect moment, as he had a theory to test, And then, without thinking twice, he kicked with all his strength the boar in his way, which left the animal's owner in complete shock. Desperate, she cried over the animal's body, whose spirit was already ascending to the heavens, lamenting the loss of her little boy. Soon after, a system notification appeared, informing him that his extra damage had increased by 1%. Ye Chuan, in turn, was surprised, confirming that his theory really worked. The animal's owner, however, blinded by rage, charged at him screaming, calling him a murderer and saying she would fight to the death for killing her poor son. However, with a terrifying calmness, he simply turned to her and stated that he was a psychopath. Then he showed her his medical report, and with a cold, empty gaze, he asked if there was anything else she wanted to resolve with him. Otherwise, he would leave. At that moment, the woman froze in fear, realizing she had encountered a real lunatic who, besides killing her dog, could easily kill her too. Soon, she completely changed her attitude and, with a forced smile, asked the young man to take care. Shortly after, our hero finally arrived home. There, he was greeted by his parents, and his father, with a smile on his face, asked if he had really changed his profession to pig butcher. The boy simply nodded. With that, the proud father said the boy was just like him, and that it was great that they were just honest butchers, claiming it was much better than fighting and killing, and even added that the next day he would take him to the slaughterhouse so he could get familiar with the trade. Later, night fell over the family's house, and in his room, Ye Chuan slept peacefully, wearing pig-themed pajamas. However, outside, a dark and mysterious figure watched the house. The unwanted visitor approached the window of his parents' room, where they slept peacefully. The father, however, seemed to sense his presence and, in his thoughts, asked that figure not to disturb their lives anymore. The dark figure, known as the feared ghost whale, couldn't believe that Ye Chi-yuan's son was just a butcher, and suspiciously wondered if that boy was truly his biological son. Suddenly, the old man opened his eyes, and with a furious glare, warned him that he had already told him not to bother them, and stated that otherwise he wouldn't be so polite. Ghost Whale, in turn, asked him not to be upset and reassured him, saying that since his son was just a butcher, the organization certainly wouldn't trouble them anymore. With that, the mysterious visitor vanished into the darkness of the night. The next day, father and son were at the slaughterhouse. There, they walked among hanging pig carcasses. The father then led him to a reserved area, where a set of butcher knives was carefully displayed in a wooden case on the wall. And with that, he explained that a good butcher starts with a good knife. He then encouraged him to choose the one that best fit his hand. Ye Chuan then picked the middle knife, feeling that it was the most suitable for him. Immediately, a system notification appeared, informing him that the Pig Slayer knife had been selected, activating the Blade of Divine Slaughter, which would grant him free attribute points for each pig he slaughtered with that weapon. Soon, his father introduced him to a hanging pig and said that the first step to becoming a good butcher was learning how to use the knife. However, the animal he was supposed to slaughter wasn't dead. It was a live, furious pig, staring at him with a threatening grunt. The father then instructed him to aim for the weak spot to ensure a quick and precise death with a single strike. And with that, he encouraged him to give it a try.